Thank you all for joining us. My name is Kevin Anyango, the founder of Mtandao Varsity School of Soft Skills. What the podcast does is try and create awareness on soft skills, and these are those behaviors or characteristics that employers are looking for. Unfortunately, not many people understand or appreciate what soft skills are. But today, I am not alone. Today, I have Prof.PLO Lumumba. Lumumba, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And I congratulate you for doing what you are doing. Because the world now requires young men and women with skills, a set of skills which are practical. And then I'll ask the good professor to introduce himself a little.
Please, yes, carry on.
Good evening to you.
Hi, Professor.
My name is Mohammed Hussein Abdillah, the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration, Finance, and Planning, Masai Mara University.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So you are pretending to be running a university online. He runs a real university.
You cannot say that. Can you take that back, Professor? And I'm going to explain why the name Mtandao Varsity. Two things. Number one, when people hear the word varsity, they tend to concentrate and think about it, because of the way we are brought up. That varsity, it's a place where there's lots of respect, and it's a place for research. However, my podcast is very, very informal. The name was just a name, but the main idea is Mtandao, which is internet. And most of my target audience use internet, hence Mtandao Varsity, School of Soft Skills. And lastly, I am the only one who does training on Mtandao on soft skills, which is free and also online. So there you go, PLO, if that answers your question.
No, that is very good. So I think the best thing to do is to, in my view, before you say anything, my understanding is that we now have a generation of young men and women, some of whom have gone to the universities, some of whom have not gone to the universities. And the foundational question is, what does the market want? If you are a lawyer, what kind of lawyer does the market want? If you are an economist, what kind of economist does the market want? If you are a doctor, what kind of doctor? In other words, beyond mere academics, beyond possession of papers. I now know, for example, just to go on a tangent, there are people who are students of agriculture who have never milked a cow, and they are graduates in agriculture. Now with virtual learning, you really want people who are hands-on. And perhaps I'm going overboard, but I remember when we were a little younger in Kenya, we had a college called Egerton University. The good Professor Abdillah will remember that. And that was a university that was famous for diploma courses, and they produced graduates who could actually go into the market, into the real world, and be practical. And the many workers are now asking those questions. I know, before you ask your question, there are institutions in different parts of the world where when you are looking for a job, your certificate is the last thing they ask you about. In other words, they take you through an interview process and they ask you practical questions. It is only later that they say, but you said you had certificates. Let's now see them. But traditionally, we've been asking, you go into an interview, you have a very big bag, and you have a big bag seminar that you have attended and a big box file. And beyond the box file, there is very little that you can offer. And perhaps the professor can tell you, having run a university, how his alumni have been performing in the market and what kind of feedback, because he's at Masai Mara University, but this is not the university that he went to and that he started at. So the professor will say something.
Please, yes, carry on.
Running in Tandao University, first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And having in Tandao University, and you saying Tandao, probably I will assume that you are either Kenyan or from Tanzania or from Uganda. If you are my fellow Kenyan, first of all, congratulations.
Asante sana. Nashukuru.
Just as a PLO has mentioned to you, Egerton University was formed by Lord Egerton of Tatton, Scotland, United Kingdom. And I am a professor of medicine at Egerton University School of Medicine. And Lord Egerton University has formed Egerton University College before even Nairobi University came into existence. So you can imagine why he had refused to convert Egerton University College into a university purposely to be identified as an agricultural institution that leads specifically in agriculture, animal production, food security for the region. That is how the name Egerton became renowned and got associated with what I've just mentioned to you. He never wanted degrees, but he wanted people that will contribute to the alleviations of poverty in the continent, and more so Kenya. And that's why Egerton College was better than Egerton University we have today.
Correct.
That's unbelievable. And in fact, listen, I want to jump in quickly. You asked whether I'm a Kenyan or not. Well, I will tell you this. Mimi ni Mkenya kabisa. Mimi Kenya mtaani tu.
Very good, very good. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. You know,
oh, you're very kind. Oh,
when we say, you know, soft skills, for us, the old schools, soft skills is just an additional to our basic skills for survival. When we call people for interview nowadays, you'll find someone with a master's degree in human resource management, but still does not understand how to do what's called as social responsibility, emotional control, handling of human beings, empathy, sympathy. So these are Google boys and girls. When we give them documents, conventional ways of handling documents, you find them quite lucky. You find someone with a PhD, and you tell him, okay, you have a PhD in sciences, in management, more than your papers, keep the papers aside, and you have applied for the post of a lecturer or assistant lecturer. Please give me the basics requirements to be a lecturer. What's a course outline? What's course composition? What's career? What's curriculum development? Students' approach, examinations, results, marking scheme. How would you rate your students?
Yes.
I'm telling you, someone has to Google something to say something.
Well,
so, quite a number of times, as in charge of the Division of Administration and Human Resources, recruitments failed because virtually all the candidates failed to live the expectations. One or two people may agree or disagree, but if the final resolution rests with me, I dismiss them. I tell them, go back, your papers aside, I want someone who knows what he has applied for. Have you read the contents of the adverts, the requirements, the needs, and our long-term goals of building a solid resource for the institutions that will live up to the expectations of not only Kenya, but Africa and beyond Africa? Someone comes with a PhD, published 2 papers in a local journal, colluded with another professor around. I tell that person, what is the impact factor of the article you have published? He tells you, it's the African Journal of Agriculture in Nigeria. Okay, fine, that is an article. Your thesis content, fine. But I tell him, you become a lecturer at Egerton University or Masai Mara University. The next thing is, I want you to register for a postdoctorate fellowship in which you are required to publish articles, contribute research with another 16 institutions which have other students. Now this person finds himself confused. A PhD holder is a PhD holder, but we have master's holders or even an undergraduate 1969, 1970, 1980 holders who can babysit a PhD holder of today. And those are from universities. Now, Mtandao, I have to understand, I have to learn, but the soft skills are just added advantage coming up.
Well, listen.
And the introductions, I will leave to my learned.
No.
But you can see what the professor is saying. Of course, this is not going in the typical way you want it to go, because we also don't want a Q&A. And the reason why the professor's contribution is very useful is that he gives you very practical issues born out of experience. Because when you go for an interview, traditionally, as is already said, you are prepped. And in fact, there are now institutions that prepare you for an interview, anticipate the questions that you are going to be asked, and anticipate the answers and prepare you for the answers. But when you do that, a proper interviewer will find you out. I remember I was in an interview panel interviewing somebody for associate professor, and this fellow said, I'm a professor of human rights. I said, well, can you name for me the top 10 human rights scholars in Europe, in North America, in Latin America, in Asia, and in Africa, each one of them? Because that is your area, you are a PhD holder, and you want to be a professor in that field. So you must be familiar with this. He knew none of them. So how can you be a professor in a field where you do not know the leading lights? But you can now ask your question. A few of them.
Listen, I don't even have questions anymore, because I had a script here with me, Professor, but I'm going to throw it away. Because
that is good.
what you guys have discussed is exactly what Internal is all about. And I'm very glad you brought the good professor with you here. So I will go straight to him first of all. I'm going to ask.
Yes, please.
So why are universities not talking about soft skills? Remember, I'm trained in Kenya as well. I went to my first degree was in Kenya, and I can tell you, I don't remember sitting in any class where we talked about soft skills. You can guess how old I am if you want to. But why don't you talk about soft skills then?
Well, I told you soft skills are very important. No doubt about that. In the current generations, in the current era, soft skills are vital. They're very essential, but they are not so basic. It comes on its own with the current developments of, IT. Soft skills will come. What we require is, for example, someone did a degree online. Understand degree online? Degree online, 50% of the degree online, you'll find it social skills. Am I right? a degree, a European university that gives an online degree, it's more of a computational than meeting you as a person. Suppose you today, you have children at your home. If you're around at home, interacting with your kids, talking to them, looking at their marks, advising them one-on-one, what is the level of emotional connections than when you are outside the country and talking to them via Zoom. Now, the same also happens that soft skills are important, but they are added advantage, and those who don't have it will not do well in our current situation where we are. So it's compulsory.
So why can't you talk in school then?
Yes.
Why is Masai Mara? Don't talk about it.
Soft skill, no, for example, soft skills are very essential. They're very important. For example, an old school guy who is a doctor treating people needs to understand the current technology of how to do it using the current system and what's in place. So every institution needs to be educated, just like I'm hearing for the first time in Mtandao University. People have to know what's Mtandao University, what does it do, what are your values, what are your principles, what are your philosophies. You see, before I came to know PLO, I had to know PLO. I had to gather all these quotes. I have almost 20 quotes of PLO. I downloaded PLO's quotes. I'm not a lawyer, but as today is with me someone who works for an NGO, but he came to visit me. Then I told him, I have an appointment with the PLO. He said, I am a fan of PLO. How did this person came to know about PLO? Is because of the actions and the deeds of PLO as a #1 constitutional human rights Pan-Africanist, not Kenya, Pan-Africanist.
Oh, don't.
I asked him 4 questions. The guy is there with me. I told him, if you know PLO, and if you like PLO, quote me right. Yeah. And he's there. I told him, tell me something about PLO and what did the PLO say, and why do you like him? Before we go to his office. Yeah. This is why I'm saying Mtandao University has to tell itself in actions and deeds. And I told this guy before coming to this place, I told him, a very straightforward and no-nonsense person. That wherever he goes, he leaves a mark of excellence by telling the truth, even if it's bitter. Those are the hallmark of PLO. So Mtandao University has to be open, has to be transparent, has to have values, has to have objectives, philosophies, people of dignity, associations. So I need to learn University before I can come.
Thank you very much. And I want you to listen to this. You know, today is very different.
Don't say
because this is a young man.
Lumumba.
I want him to tell you. I want him to tell you what he does.
Right, but
briefly for 1 minute.
But listen, before I just let him speak, Professor PLO, Waniskiza.
Yes.
This is my show. I run the show, not you. I run the show.
I've taken over.
Please, introduce your guest. Let me speak now. Please carry on.
Thank you very much. I want, one of the things that is very important when you are not scripted, and believe me, when you are not scripted, you achieve a lot, because the idea is that this is how Socrates used to teach. Yeah, because it comes from the heart. This is a young person who is also involved in, let him tell you what he does.
Hi.
Please carry on.
Good afternoon, my friend. How are you? Hi, thank you very much. I was not in the loop of the whole thing, but I understand something about Mtandao. It's, I think, as an aspect of technology in learning. And as a young person who is involved in these issues of IT learning, it's something like I welcome and encourage you and also congratulate you.
Thank you.
My good professor was talking about one thing that normally inspires me as a young person. I've worked in the youth programs for the last couple of years. Is I do normally stay a loop on these kind of conversations that are normally being broadcasted in the media. For example, that the one we are currently discussing on Tandao. I normally follow the lectures of PLO Lumumba, and on timely basis when he's in Tanzania, Nigeria, Ghana, normally focusing on how Pan-Africanists have contributed to the African agenda and how it was hijacked. I think the good work that he normally tells us about it as a young people, we normally then listen to his wise words. And I think something you guys can continue. So I will encourage you to do the same.
Yeah.
I will be following.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very kind.
Yeah.
Well,
so let's go on now.
No. Listen, I like the way what your guests have shared. And for those that are just joining us, this is Tandao University School of Soft Skills. You know more about us if you go to YouTube. You'll see some of the podcasts I've done. Today I am with Professor PLO Lumumba. I'll go straight to the point, Professor. And first of all, in very simple terms, what would you say soft skills are? And when I say simple terms, I mean not something I can find on Google, just from your understanding.
My understanding is that skills, and the word soft is actually just the value, but skills are soft, those which recognize the vision and mission of the individual who wants to achieve a determined goal. And these are skills that enable you to arrive at that goal. And those skills are skills that must be relevant to the thing that is called into question, must be relevant to the environment that is called into question, and must be designed in a manner that enhances the quality of the work and the relationship that are involved. When you have such skills, I take the view that you have sufficient soft skills because of their practical value. They descend from the arena of idealism into the soft ground of practice. That is how I would describe rather than define soft skills.
And you will acknowledge that most of universities today, they are saying that they are producing unemployable people. And when I say unemployable, I mean people that cannot work with people that are not cannot solve problems, people that do not think outside the box. And today, I like us to concentrate just on critical thinking and why it is important for young people to understand what critical thinking is. And it's not just about challenging ideas, but it's about making decisions. It's about deciding what you want to do as a person. So to you, the experience, how would critical thinking come into play when someone is looking for employment or opportunities? I think I've lost Professor there.
Let us tell you, we realized that ultimately, why do people go to school? Acquisition of knowledge in and of itself, South Korea, Japan, and Vietnam recently have now found themselves in a totally different space. And even if you go to countries such as Germany, where the apprenticeship programs were very, very important. If you want to be an engineer, you are an engineer with your hands. And in that way, as the English saying goes, practice makes perfect. I don't know whether the internet is cut us because you are frozen on the screen. Can I be heard?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes, very well.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying that the reason why you find that many of the graduates in Africa find themselves in a very difficult space is because we stopped teaching people in the manner that imparted skills. When you were at the university, for example, you had lectures, you had tutorials. When the numbers increased, you went into a class which was essentially a public rally. So you went there and delivered a lecture and then went away. But if you go to universities in different parts of the world, you find that the class size is 25. If you are students of medicine, you are doing the ward rounds and you are seeing what is being done. And it is true that a good doctor is here now. When you are dealing with 200 students, even if you wanted to do it, you can't do it. If you are a student of engineering and you are a civil engineer, I would want to see them on the roads being taken to different terrains and being told, now tell us, how would you solve the problem in an area such as this? If you are a student of agricultural engineering, when we were at the university, we had one lady who was one of the leading tractor drivers in Kenya, Lucy Rao, a student of agricultural engineering. You go to the farm. If you are a student of veterinary science, if you are a student, the entire program of being an apprentice was very important. And that is what we have lost. And you remember I started at the beginning that we have now recognized that competency-based. Somebody was telling me yesterday, he's a manager in a hotel here in Nairobi, and he was telling me he was in Singapore for the last 3 years and in China for another 10 years. And this is what they do in Singapore. After grade 6, they separate the best from the rest. After another grade, they separate the best from the rest. After another grade, the best from the rest. And the best get into government in Singapore. The very best get into government. That is why Singapore is the way it is. And what do? Practice. You do things when you say that you are capable of doing things, you are put into the arena of practice. And I think that that is what we should do more often. I would myself prefer that we move away from this examination-oriented systems where you go to school and then after 12 years, you are subjected to an examination. And even my weighting would change. I would put 30% for examination, 70% for cumulative assessment, as long as the process itself is honest. I'm telling you that is the best way. I'm also one who believes, when I was teaching at the university, I believe in open book examination. Because that is, even if you have 100 books, if we pose a question in a manner that requires practical skills, even if you have books, if you didn't read and you don't apply, you will still fail. But this examination by ambush, where we are testing your memory so that examinations are elevated to the height of a journey to heaven, is one of the problems that we have in many African countries. So
I'm going to call you
apprenticeship.
But PLO, I'm going to call you out here.
Yes,
you used to be head of law school in Kenya. You see now,
yes.
actually.
Yes.
So, but you don't talk about soft skills. You are, as an academician that understands the importance of soft skills. But I know Kenya School of Law very well. I've got a sister who went there, so I know the curriculum very well. There's nowhere you are talking about soft skills or even practicality element apart from before your students get admitted to the bar, they go to the law court to practice a bit, but there's no particular curriculum that talks about soft skills.
No, perhaps don't be a prisoner of words because you think you are talking as if in order to have soft skills, you must actually say they are soft skills. You can have soft skills without ever mentioning those words. If you look at the curriculum of many of these courses, whether it's in law or in agriculture, from day one, there was an attempt to do so. But the practical realities is what militated against. I remember even my younger days as a student, you had moot courts, for example. When you had moot courts at the university, then you went to what is called practicum. The American called them externships. And in medicine, you have internships. At the Kenya School of Law, we have this farms, and you try to do it. But the problem why we don't achieve what we desire, even when structurally we appear to be getting it right, is number one, numbers. If you have students who are 600 with a personnel of 11, no matter how you want to do it, you cannot achieve it. And ultimately, how we then defeat our own programs is waiting. You take students through this program where they are doing the practicals, and then this only accounts for 30%. So their focus is on the examination, which carries 70%. Suppose you reversed it and you said it is the practical thing that is 70% and the examination 30%, which means that if you score 50% in the practicum and you score, say, 15% in the examination, then you are deemed to have passed. So I think that there is a sense in which we got it wrong. The beauty is that we have admitted it. And I know, for example, the Kenya School of Law has now organized a program later this month to re-examine in the context of what we are doing, how legal training is being done. And I know that is happening with medicine, it's happening with different disciplines. And it is not a conversation that we must only carry out in a single discipline. Look at engineering now. Look at city planning, town planning in Nairobi. There is a crisis in Nairobi. And only yesterday, I was looking at how they are organizing public transport in Rwanda. So, and these are the soft skills. In Rwanda today, you know, you can go to Kigali, and in the equivalent of Wamatatu, you can pay your fare for a whole month. No rocket science, just doing the right things, discipline. And this is one of the things that I must tell you. No matter what knowledge you have, if you don't have integrity, if you don't have discipline, you are going nowhere. Integrity, discipline, consistency is what breeds a culture of excellence. And what is excellence? Excellence is seeking to do the very best, and integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, and discipline is doing it with dedication as if your life depended on it. If you did all those things in that way, the average person becomes excellent. The excellent person who thinks he or she has monopoly of knowledge and is indisciplined and without integrity is worse than the son of the morning star, who is otherwise known as the devil.
Professor, I can sit here just listen to you the whole day. It's quite interesting. You do know your stuff very well, I've got to say. But just going back again, as we started, again, for just joining us, this is Mtandao Varsity School of Soft Skills. And today I'm talking to Professor PLO Lumumba. Someone just sent me a text asking me, who is this man? And I'm going to, just in response to that question, I will ask him to go and Google Professor Lumumba, and they will know who you are. Professor, how can one, so we understand and we appreciate the importance of critical thinking. Can you show that in an interview?
Oh, yeah. You remember, I'll give you a personal example. When I was employed at the University of Nairobi for the first time as a graduate assistant, I was teaching with my good friend and professor and my former teacher, Professor Onesmus Kimweli Mutungi at that time. When I went for the interview to be promoted to be an assistant lecturer from a graduate assistant, we had been teaching a course with him called The Law of Thought. So when I got into the interview, he asked me, what is the law of thought? I told him, Professor, I will not answer that question. And the entire panel said, why? I said, but I've been teaching the law of thought with Professor Mutungi for the last 1 year. How can he ask me such a basic question? I know the answer, but I refuse to answer the question. But I'll describe what thought is and what thought entails. And later, Professor Kotho Gendo, who insisted that I must be promoted, said that answer is what made the panel decide that you must be promoted. Because you are not intimidated by the panel, you are ready to disagree with your own lecturer and superior, but to do so in a respectable and in an agreeable manner. In other words, when you are truthful and you are speaking from the heart, my experience is that you will irritate a few, as you may, but when they are objective, they are going to say, yes, this is a young person who is capable of questioning things when it is necessary to question them. And throughout the ages, you will see that those who have had the courage courage to question things are the ones who have changed the world. Otherwise, many people want to conform. You want to read the emotions of the teacher. You want to do what the teacher may like, even if it is not right. I hold the view that there's a younger generation. You have a duty to be inquisitive and to ask uncomfortable questions, but you do so in a manner that at all times demonstrates that you show respect to your superiors. That is very critical. When you disagree with people, disagree with them in an agreeable manner. You must not be arrogant about it. You must not pontificate about it, but do so in a manner that suggests to them that when the chips are down and when things are not going in the right direction, you are prepared to challenge the authorities. And I think that is what we miss. And I ask, when the standard question that I ask when I'm in an interview panel is this: what would you do differently if you are hired in order to add value to this institution? What would you do differently? Because what happens with most people when they go to an interview, particularly in these days of technology, they'll have read the website, they'll have read the vision and mission, and they can sing it like parrots. Your mission and vision, your this, your goal and objective, your strategic plan. That we know. So forget about our strategic plan. We are now in the era of nanotechnology. What would you do? That is the kind of thing. There is a speech that I want you to listen to. Is a speech delivered by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. You've seen it.
Yes.
When he's talking about Israel and its involvement in technology, in agriculture, and in other things, when you listen to him and he's your head of state, don't you feel comfortable?
Yes.
This is a man, number one, who knows what he's talking about, and it is evidence-based. He's not a pie in the sky. It is something that is demonstrable. And people, can you believe it? The professor is saying something.
We have a partnership with the University of Tel Aviv at Egyptian University. And to add a little bit on that, is that Israel, where it's located, do not matter. The land do not matter. The weather do not matter. What mattered was sheer determinations to be the leading nation in the world that attracted the best of the minds of not only Israelis, but of many other nations. You can see how they were able to convert an entire desert into a land producing best of fruits, sold, marketed in Europe. They don't shy to tell you that this thing is from Israel. Their determination to convert the seawater into soft, drinkable, palatable water. Their determinations not to waste sewage improvements, waste biodigesters, energy from the sun. So you name it of the current world technology for future generations, Israelis have it. We send some of our students for agriculture, for PhD and masters, their internships to Israel to learn how to do things different than we do it here. The professor told you one thing very well, that if today we are to see the best of the best, we'll be sitting here listening to his wisdom. He's a very valuable person. And you are being babysitted on what is ethics. What is a degree without a dignity? And what is a position without love for the people? What is money with so much greed? What is so much wealth? Yet we are so poor. So
we'll have to end in the next few minutes. This to me is a continuing program, and of course today we have forced you to in very softly to run your program differently.
But I appreciate that. But I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
Professor PLO Lumumba,
Yeah.
I know, we're going to talk about, and as you say, time zone aside. There's one thing that I'd like us, to agree on, particularly, and this is, you talked about integrity.
Yes.
Lots of people are trying to do stuff online, and politicians, academicians, they talk online with young people, but the manner of the way people disagree is appalling, really. And this is one of the things again that I think we need to be very, very clear about. It's okay to disagree, but with integrity. My last question to you, Professor Lumumba. So what should Africa do? And when I say Africa, I mean academics in general, introduce soft skills as part of curriculum in the education system?
Not necessarily. I think that such skills should be infused in every course so that it's not taught as a standalone thing. When the danger is when you teach things as standalone, then they don't get integrated. I used in my younger days to give a lecture at Kiganjo Police Training School in Nyeri about human rights. And the police officers will tell you, this is just for passing examination. And I recommended, and I still do, that what you need to do in every course that you are teaching, there must be an element of those soft skills. I'll give you a good example. In the Scandinavian countries, when they are teaching history, when they are teaching you mathematics, they teach you the history of mathematics, the history of chemistry, the history of biology, so that you are better able to appreciate things in their entirety, so that the soft skills become a part of what you are doing on a daily basis. But to those who may not have gone through those courses, there is wisdom in always having what I call a finishing school. And a finishing school is where you are now equipped, you are now being reminded that beyond the qualifications that you have, you are now going into the real world, into the University of Hard Knocks, where things don't go according to the textbook position. And once you appreciate that, you'll you are going to meet people, you are going to meet a boss who is brooding, you are going to meet fellow workers whose only claim to fame is to undermine you. Now, unasikia Waswahili wanasema, if my audience understands Kiswahili, in Kiswahili we say, afadhali mchawi kuliko mfitini, utawapata wafitini huko, utawapata wachochezi huko. So, and that is the real world. So my recommendation to you is that soft skills are useful, and I encourage people when you've graduated, you've got to build an environment around you who enrich you, and people who talk about that improve the quality you have. What value do they add to your life? Socially, intellectually, or otherwise. Don't add value to your life, then wait. And you must be questioning. There is no unanimity in any human affairs. The only unanimity that I know is in the cemetery, because everybody is unanimous in their silence. But once you are in the real world, we may disagree on the with what Chinua Achebe used to say, let the hawk perch and let the eagle perch. It's the same tree. The hawk will perch on it, the eagle will perch on it, and lo and behold, we are all very happy people. Things fall apart, and they can be put together in that way. So going forward, what I would urge, and I must congratulate you.
Oh, thank you.
You may think that what you are doing is a small thing. This is a big thing. The very decision to do this kind of thing tells us that you are worried about the next generation, because the next generation, if Africa is going to be great, and I commend a number of books to you, I recommend that you read Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Decolonizing the Mind. I think Ngugi writes very well in terms of course, he's talking about literature, but Decolonizing the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o is very useful. I also invite you to read a book written in 1930 1933 by the great American educator Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro. Miseducation of the Negro, because it tells you how a school process can actually miseducate you, so that we must re-educate ourselves, and you re-educate yourselves by being willing to learn. One of the things that you must also have a teachable spirit, and a teachable spirit is a spirit which knows that you can learn from the most unlikely of quarters. You can learn from your students, you can learn from people simply by observing and imbibing. But if you meet any person who claims that they're educated and is arrogant, that is a fool. Education should only make you humble. You remember in Greece of old, when the oracle of Apollo wanted to find out who was the wisest person in Greece, it went out, and there were great thinkers at that time. There were people like Aristophanes, Sophocles, and when the oracle of Apollo went back to Olympia, he said that the wisest man in Greece was Socrates. And the reason why he said that was simple. When Socrates was asked, what do you know? He said, the only thing that I know is that I know nothing. And the oracle said, yes, this is a man who knows that he knows nothing. Because the more you know that you do not know.
Yes, yes. Oh, no, Professor, I can sit
Thank
here
you.
all day and listen to you. Can you hear me, Professor? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Well, listen, and again, I cannot thank you now for your time, but the last segment of this podcast, what I normally do is I normally ask guests to recommend to me another person. For instance, you came here because of Jackie Maribe, and thanks to her, she introduced us very well and
thank
you. The show. So I'm asking you
to recommend somebody.
Yes, I want Jeff Koinange here.
Yes, we'll talk to Jeff.
Okay,
I'll talk to Jeff.
I want to
yes, so perhaps let me talk to him first so that we don't commit him without his knowledge.
Absolutely. And all I can do is just
because he may have a schedule, but I'll ask him to come and
oh, marvelous. Thank you so much. I can see that for some reasons you keep on breaking.
It is those who ask that good book says, seek and you shall find. Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm losing you, Professor, but thank you so much for your time.
Very cute.
I really appreciate it, and thank you, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a